From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your top tropical storm Isaias update. This briefing 9:30 in the morning, Monday, August the 3rd, and basically things are kind of on their way to further developing as the day goes on. There hasn't been a whole lot of change since we talked yesterday and had our briefings yesterday. There's a few minor refinements to the forecast, but all in all, everything we've been advertising the last couple days is largely the same. So nothing substantial changes. So just to remind folks, we do have a tropical storm warning that's in effect for the counties that are in the darker red color. So we're basically talking the counties that are along I-95. If I-95 runs through your county, with the exception of Harnett, but aside from Harnett, if I-95 runs through your county, you are under a tropical storm warning, and all the counties east of there as well. Now, Warren, Franklin, Wake, Harnett, Hoke, and Scotland, you're still under a tropical storm watch. So we're still not sure exactly how far west the strongest winds will get. So hang in there, and we'll have to decide whether or not we either drop your watch or expand the warning into your counties, but that decision will be made later today. So if you're in one of the lighter shades of red and you're wondering what's happening there, just hang in there till this afternoon. We'll have a better idea. All right, wind, flooding rains, river flooding, and tornadoes are the main concerns. Since our briefings, remember yesterday at 5 o'clock, the big change was, we were more concerned about river flooding, so I'll touch base on that here shortly. But basically, those are our four main threats, and certainly river flooding and rainfall flash flooding are the greatest of all the threats. Wind is certainly up there too. With tornado being certainly tornado's not it's a big deal if a tornado touches down at your location, right? But there's going to be so few of those, and they're going to be so widely scattered. That's why we have them highlighted in the yellow as a lower threat. Okay, but tornadoes could obviously still be a big deal in terms of damage, but very localized locations. In the big picture, the tropical storm warning track really hasn't changed a whole lot. So again, just a reminder, don't get fixated on the width of the cone. The width of the cone only says where the center of the storm may go. The width, that white shaded cone, does not show where impacts could be. And remember, impacts can be felt far away from that white shaded cone area, from the track cone, if you will. All right. Here is a radar loop of the last, let's say, last 60 minutes. And you can see this activity, this rain activity coming up from the south is some of the forerunner rain bands, and is associated with, Isaias. And it's just not unusual to have these forerunner type rain bands that move up and across our area well in advance of the center. So we're going to start adding up the storm total rain, beginning with this rain activity you see here, and that'll be the case of the day for central North Carolina. Off and on rain as these forerunner bands move up and across the state. Okay, now as the day progresses, we are concerned that the risk for tornadoes embedded within some of these bands will increase. So right now, I don't think that's the case. We don't see any rotation in any of these cells, but later in the day, this afternoon, particularly into this evening, some of the, it wouldn't be surprised if we see some rotation in some of these bands. And if we do think there's a tornado developing, we will issue tornado warnings as needed. All right, so in terms of the wind threat, who's going to have the worst wind? This really hasn't changed much. This has been pretty much our situation that we've been advertising for days. The greatest risk is from I-95 eastward to I-95 counties eastward. And then, there could be some lesser wind impacts, but still some wind damage as far back as the triad. In terms of the most likely time of arrival, we're talking basically this evening and overnight tonight. Again, no change there. We've been talking about overnight tonight for quite some time. In terms of these graphics here give you a little bit better idea of when that strong wind is going to arrive. And here's the time. See where I'm highlighting right there in the upper left of each image? That's the time that these are in effect. All right, so basically, we're going to see some of those stronger winds coming up from the south beginning is this evening. You know, the southeast portion, southeastmost part of the state will begin to feel some of that, those inner bands, stronger winds, the stronger winds associated with those inner bands. The stronger winds with the inner bands will be felt as far north as Smithfield, Lillington, over towards Southern Pines, especially Fayetteville, and even Clinton. You're going to be in it, and Goldsboro, you'll be in it. Some of those strong gusty winds up to 40, 45 miles per hour, even a gust into the mid 50s is possible by 11 p.m. This evening. Well, what's a gust in the mid 50s going to give you? Lots of downed trees. You know, a 50-mile-per-hour wind gust isn't going to blow a roof off a house, but it sure will blow a tree down, which could land on a house. So keep that in mind. As we go into the overnight hours, those inner band high winds will basically move up and across the coastal plain. So we're talking between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Things are really going to be rocking and rolling there across the coastal plain. The I-95 corridor, rocking and rolling both in wind and rain. So heavy downpours. So we're talking the I-95 counties east toward the coastal areas, US 17 corridor. But you know, a wind gust of 65 miles per hour is definitely going to drop some trees. We're talking Sampson County, Wayne County, southeast Johnson County. You know, gust even up into around 50 miles per hour up toward Rocky Mount, Roanoke Rapids. Certainly could cause some trees damage. Now, you know, certainly as you go west toward Raleigh with wind gusts in the lower 40s, that's nothing to look the other way on. Certainly, you know, a wind gust of 40 miles per hour is going to knock down the smaller trees and the weaker, bigger trees, and obviously that can cause wind damage. And you know, if we'll have to keep an eye on how much rain falls in the triad, because if the ground is really, really wet, then you know, gust up around 30 miles per hour can't be entirely rolled out in the triad. So there may be even some power outages as far west as Greensboro, Asheboro, Troy, Wadesboro. You know, don't think you're completely out of the woods, but in terms of the number of downed trees and the magnitude of damage will be much less as you go back toward Greensboro, Asheboro, Troy, Wadesboro, and points west. All right, and then by the time you wake up to, well, I probably will be up tonight. The gusty winds and the shaking of the home probably, well, at least where I live anyway, will probably. I'm not sure how well I'll sleep tonight, but nevertheless, when I wake up tomorrow morning, the storm should be actually the center of it should be north of the Virginia line. So by 8, well, I'll be up before 8 a.m., but certainly by 8 a.m. The line will be the center of the storm will be up you know, north of our area, and really things begin to appreciably settle down after 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Okay, so tomorrow during the daytime, especially the afternoon, will be a good opportunity to pick up those down trees and tree limbs and branches, and you know, hopefully you know, power company getting things restored and clean up basically tomorrow afternoon. All right, when you add it all up and you kind of all those graphics I just showed you, here is the peak winds that we're expecting. Wind gusts in the basically topping out in the low 60s to up around 70 across the coastal plain. Look at that swath, peak winds possibly in the low 70s, mid 70s along the US 17 corridor. So if you're closer to the coast, obviously the winds will be even stronger there. But again, you know, certainly there could be quite a bit of downed trees in the corridor between 95 and the US 1 corridor. So that includes most of the Triangle region. And then and again, don't forget, if you're back in the Greensboro Triad area down toward Wadesboro, I wouldn't say you're completely out of the woods yet. There could still be a few down trees there as well. In terms of flooding impacts, again, pretty much all of central North Carolina could see 2 to 4 inches of rain. We are expecting a narrow swath of 4 to 6 inches of rain. And let me show that here on the next slide. A swath of 4 to 6 inches of rain, basically between US 1, I-95, and the coastal plain. Again, 40 miles either side of I-95. You're going to have the heaviest rain, and again, we've been advertising that for days. 4 to 6 inches of rain either side of I-95, including the I-95 corridor. So anyway, what's that going to give you? That's going to give you, you know, flash flooding of low spots, poor drainage areas, streams and creeks, flash flooding. There's a flash flood watch for all of central North Carolina. Keep in mind that flash floods activate wireless emergency alerts in most cases. If it, you know, if we're probably going to be setting off the cell phones tonight. So when we issue those flash flood warnings, so You will get, oh, and by the way, wireless emergency alerts on your cell phone will also activate for tornado warnings as well. So make sure you have your cell phone handy. Make sure the ringer's turned up, because you will get tornado warnings and you will get flash flood warnings on your cell phone through wireless emergency alerts. So make sure you don't have that feature turned off, and make sure the ringer's turned up so you can hear them. All right, eventually all that rain's got to go somewhere. It's going to eventually find its way into the main stem rivers. So there is a risk for some river flooding here, particularly on the Neuse River at Clayton. We are expecting that to rise above flood stage Tuesday afternoon, and then cresting at moderate on Wednesday. And then, of course, that'll affect the Neuse River Greenway Trail. And at 16 feet, I will point out that major flooding begins. But the better chance for major flooding is at Smithfield, where major flood begins at 20 feet, and we're going to get real close to that. Solid, moderate flooding we're expecting, basically going above flood stage Tuesday night and cresting at moderate on Wednesday. So at 20 feet, that cuts off the water treatment plant access to the reservoir. And I also point out at 18 feet, and we're definitely going to hit 18 feet, the Smithfield Town Park and Neuse River Walk at the 70 Bridge are flooded. All right. In terms of tornadoes, I did mention just a moment ago that you can get tornado warnings on your cell phone via wireless emergency alerts. Keep in mind that east of I-95 will be the area that has the greatest risk for tornadoes. We can't rule out tornadoes as far west as the US 1 corridor. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the key points of this briefing. Confidence is high. We're pretty much at showtime now, and things are going to go downhill through the day. Like I said, the first hazard will be the tornado hazard, because those outer rain bands is a lot of times where you find that, and then as the afternoon and the heating gets going, we may have that risk this starting as early as this afternoon. But especially this evening through Tuesday morning. And then again, when you add up the rain that falls now through tomorrow morning, it should add up to at least 2 to 4 inches of rain across all of central North Carolina. I mentioned that swath of 4 to 6 along the I-95 corridor. Obviously, flash flooding and eventually river flooding are going to be the case here for the next few days. And then, of course, it's going to get pretty windy tonight, particularly along and east of I-95. So be ready for power outages. Make sure you have plenty of supplies to ride out, at least a few hours or at least a day of without power. Okay, so flashlights, batteries, anything you'd need well, you should have a whole storm kit built by now anyway. But if you go to ready.gov or readync.org, you can download a list of how to build a storm kit. Okay, and the things you would need in it. All right. So our next briefing, our next full PowerPoint briefing will be at 5 p.m. This afternoon. We will do another webinar at 11:30, as I mentioned, to kind of cover the weather after this storm. And that wraps up this morning's 9:30 webinar. Thanks to all those who joined us live, and for those who join us on YouTube after the fact.